Welcome to the channel if it's your first time here, and welcome back if it's not. Now in today's video we're going to be looking at something I've never looked at before, and indeed never owned before, and that is an Atari Lynx 2. In fact, this Atari Lynx 2. Now I picked it up on eBay. I've had my eye on them for a little while because I'm really interested to have a play and try and fix one of them, but they do go for silly money, especially if they're working. And even if they're not working, they do tend to go for silly money. So it's probably a bit more than I wanted to pay, but hopefully we can get some interesting content out of it and something enjoyable to watch. So let's get it out of the box. Now, like I said, I've not owned one of these. When they were out the first time, I did actually ponder getting one, but I never did. But now's my chance, because here it is. That is in not too bad condition. A lot of the broken ones I saw on eBay just looked like they'd been kept in a bin for the past 25 years. This actually looks pretty decent. And yeah, it comes with a game cartridge. I forgot what this game's called. Oh yeah, well, there we go. Blue Lightning. Oh man, I'm really happy with that. That's really good. Now, I don't actually know how to get into this. I imagine people will be screaming at the screen, telling me how to get into this. Aha, there we go. Battery compartment. Did feel like a battery compartment. Right, we need 6 AAs. Oh, I've noticed there's a tiny bit of corrosionness. But I can't actually... Oh no, I can see a bit down into the springs. Right, so 6 AA batteries, I can do that. Coolio. Let's make sure they're all in the right way. I haven't actually told you the fault with this. Hopefully that'll become apparent when we switch it on. I find it interesting that the cartridge doesn't actually face outwards. It faces inwards, so you don't know what game you've got in there. Right, so I believe this is the power button. Oh. Wow, that is loud. So essentially it works, but there's no screen output. So we do actually have a relatively good starting point here, because it's a semi-working console that's actually in fabulous condition for the age, but yeah, it just doesn't have a working screen. Now, because the screen is dead, I don't actually think it's worth trying to get it up and running again, largely because the screens in these are rubbish. They're very much like the Game Gear screens. So I think what we should really do is maybe recap this and fit a new screen at the same time. Now, the capacitors in this don't fail quite as hard as the capacitors in the Game Gear, because they've been in there a while and I don't really know the condition of them. It just makes sense to swap them out, because they will at some point leak, and if I leave the original ones in there, it's going to be sooner rather than later. So I've got a few little things for this repair. I've got a capacitor kit that I got from RetroSix. Now, I've also got this power repair kit that I got from RetroSix, because apparently the power circuit in these can be a little bit troublesome. It actually has some sort of different components to what's in here originally, so you can't sort of mix and match components. If we're going to do this kit, I've got to do all the pieces in the kit, or else it'll cause an imbalance and cause more problems. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do this kit yet. We'll see how things go. But something I am definitely going to do is this LED replacement screen kit from AliExpress. Now, I've not actually seen an install video of one of these on YouTube, which sort of is good, because it means, hello, you're probably watching this if you've got this kit, but also, I'm sorry, I don't really know how to install this kit apart from following the slightly rubbish instructions on the AliExpress site. But yeah, the kit has got a replacement board. It's also got a mini HDMI out, which I don't really want to add, because that means cutting the shell slightly. I think all the screws are underneath this rubber here, which is... Oh, okay. I feel like someone's peeled this back before, because that just... Yeah, that, look, there we go. Oh, right, okay, so yeah. Someone maybe has been into this before. So yeah, let's take the batteries out and get it taken apart. Really weird actually. It does smell slightly. It's like a cross between TCP and like burning electronics. Maybe we're getting to this just in the nick of time. Yeah, maybe that smell is the smell of dying capacitors. Okay, so we do have a bit of evidence of corrosion there, nothing too hideous. Oh man, that really does smell. We do have a bit of corrosion there. Let's get this under the microscope and see if we can work out what's going on, because it's not immediately clear. So it looks like some sort of coil rather than a capacitor. So yeah, we can see this isn't looking very clever. Something definitely smells funky this side of the board. It's not the sort of fishy smell actually of the Game Gears. I think I've got to proceed as planned and replace all the capacitors and see what happens, I guess. Now, they are all through-hole capacitors that we need to replace. So, yeah, it should be relatively straightforward. I think maybe we should start around here. Right, okay, so C23 is 35 volts at 10 UF. And here we have 35 volts, 10. So that is our replacement. So what I'll do is I'll replace this one quickly on camera, and then after that I can whiz through the other ones because it's going to take a while. There are quite a few capacitors. So yeah, let's get the solder gun out and thuck the solder. Nice. Put some fresh solder on and see if that helps things. Interesting. Nice. Okay, so these capacitors, because they're electrolytic ones, they have got a positive and negative. So we can see the positive is here, and the negative, which is marked there. There is our new capacitor in position. So now just a case of putting a bit of solder on. Add a little bit of flux, because why not? Nice. Give the old legs a trim. Now what you could do is go through the board and take out all the old capacitors and then put in the new capacitors. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them out one at a time and replace them one at a time. It just is a little bit easier for me to keep track, because otherwise I'll just get confused. Now this video is going to be long enough without you having to watch me replace 15 or so capacitors. So what I'm doing here is just speeding through the replacement process, which took me about an hour, but you're seeing it a lot quicker. Removing them is identical to how I just showed you. Sometimes I had to put a blob of fresh solder onto the capacitors before the solder would suck up properly. Other times they were okay. But yeah, there's a lot of capacitors to replace, and all you have to do is make sure you're replacing them with the correct values and ensuring that the polarity is correct. I didn't actually find anything of note really. There wasn't any really corroded capacitors or anything like that. So yeah, it was all pretty good. But I tell you what, while I'm replacing these quickly, let's shout out my channel members. Now channel members have joined via Patreon, Facebook or YouTube, and they help support this channel financially. If you want to become a channel member, then scan the QR code that's on the screen, But if not, just hitting like and subscribe would be very much appreciated. So let's shout out the channel members at time of editing, which are the Kip fans, who are Matt Lovey's, JRC Electrical, For the Burbs, Wayne Cornish, Rob Lynn, Scott Made a Thing, Michael Wood, Draco MacGyver, Rebecca, Tom Wood and Abigail. Then we have got the magnificent Kip Early Birds, who are Tim Salt, Sorcerer Stan, Mark C and Will Bennett. And I love these guys and gals so much. They are the lovely Kip lovers, and they are Bella Webster, Stestix Fix, Lawrence, Scott Kendall, Props RetroFix, Chelsea B and Shade Noah. And then finally we have the nuttiest people in all the land. They are the Kip Nutters. They are one step away from the top tier, and they are Becky Boobar, Alan Green and the My Mate Vince fan club over on Facebook. Thank you, our Kip Nutters, and all the channel supporters, no matter what level you're at. And I think I'm just about done with capacitors. Thank the Lord. Well, that was a lot of work, but it's done now. So all the capacitors have been replaced. Now, I think what I'm going to do now is the Screen Mod kit actually requires you to remove some of the components. Now, it's mostly over here on the sort of high voltage side. Well, I say high voltage, it's like 32 volts. So I think what I'll do with the Screen Mod part is I will go through in a bit more detail and show you it. So if you are doing this kit, you can hopefully follow along. I think once we've got the components removed that the Screen Mod doesn't need, then we can test the board and see how it's running. But it should be fine, because obviously all we've done is change the capacitors and it was working just fine before. You never know how these videos are going to turn out. Oh, for fuck's sake. So let's get the microscope back out and get rid of all the components we need to get rid of. So our first step is to remove C55, T1. You don't necessarily have to remove T1, but I'm going to get rid of it anyway because it says it's optional, and I think might as well get rid of it. And C56. So I think how I'm going to do it is I'm going to put some fresh solder onto all of the components and then use the solder sucker to remove it. I did find when I was doing the capacitors that with quite a few of them I had to apply fresh solder because the old solder was a bit, I don't know, a bit scabby and it didn't suck up very nicely. So yeah, hopefully some fresh solder will make things better. I have actually noticed there's a bit of a scorch mark by C56. And if you remember when I tested it, I could smell a slight burning smell. Oh man, that really does smell. So it could be that. So this is actually quite good that we're getting rid of these components, because yeah, that's not good. So yeah, let's start by getting rid of these three and then see how we get on. And now we suck. Well, that's all gone pretty smoothly. This guy here might need a bit more solder and then a suck. Right, to just help them out a little bit, I'm just going to give them a tap of the soldering iron as I pull. Yeah, it's left quite a scorch down there. What is this guy? 2 kilovolts? Wow, okay. Right, let's see if we can get T1 to come out. Right, and then we've just got to get out this guy here at C55. Nice, good stuff. Reflow or replace this guy, but I think because it's part of the circuit we're removing, I don't think it's going to be a problem anymore because there won't actually be anything flowing to it from what I can work out. Right, so now we've got to remove L17, which is this coil here. We've got to get rid of 14 and Q13. So I think what I'll do again is just put some fresh solder on these guys so it's easier to remove them. I know it does feel slightly counterproductive putting solder on and then sucking it off, but But yeah, it makes the job a lot easier. Oh, that coil is coming out okay. There we go. Didn't even need to heat that up again. These transistors aren't being as friendly. Perfect. Interesting that there's sort of little burn marks around that coil as well. So maybe that explains this. I don't know. But something's definitely not right there. Interesting. Is it interesting? I think the board in the instructions is actually slightly different to the one I've got. So it says we've got to remove R48 and R49, but they're in a different position to my board. So yeah, okay. Good luck, everyone. Now what's interesting is they say you've got to remove R47, which is this guy here, but according to their diagram, they've actually removed capacitor 43, which is this guy here. Now, even taking into account the differences between the two boards, my C43, oh man, this is troublesome, because like removing R49 and R48, that's fairly straightforward. I can do that, but they do seem to have circled something completely different. But you wouldn't replace a capacitor with a resistor, or would you? I don't know. I'm just going to remove the things that they've told me to do that are marked on the board. It could be that the images are wrong. I'm just going to use the soldering iron. I should probably use hot air, but yeah, I should just be able to get these little guys off with a soldering iron, maybe. That was more luck than judgment. So now we've got to turn our attention to R47. It says either bridge or replace with a 0 ohm resistor. They've included a 0 ohm resistor in the screen kit, so we might as well use it. Yeah, we'll try and get that off without burning the contrast wheel. And yeah, we've got our 0 ohm resistor. I think there's a couple of them in this bag. That'll do. A little bit on the bonk, but it's making a connection. I'm still humming and hawing about fitting the power kit. I think maybe what we could try and do is on the RetroSix wiki, there's actually a step-by-step testing guide on how to make sure the power output is correct. And you actually do it without the screen plugged in or anything like that. So I think maybe that might be sensible to try. And we can make sure that it's outputting the right voltage. And if it is, then we won't fit it. But if it's not, then we can fit it. Now, if the power circuit on your board is bad, it could mean that you end up frying the game. Now, I've only got one game currently, and I don't want to fry it. So what we'll do is there are a few little steps that we can do to basically trick the Atari Lynx to think that a cartridge is inserted and also that the power button is connected. So first of all, we need to bridge pins 33 and 31 of our cartridge slot together to make it think that there's a game in there. You could like put a blob of solder or whatnot, but it'd just be quicker, I think, to just put a spare capacitor leg that I've got knocking around, shorting the two together. So yeah, I've just roughly shorted 33 and 31 together. So now what we've got to do is apply 5.5 volts from the bench power supply into this. Now, once we've done that, we need to short some pins on U6, which is here, and that will basically tell the Lynx to switch itself on rather than having to press the power button on the front of it. So to make it switch on, you've got to short pins 7 and 13. I've highlighted them on the screen for you so it's easier to see. But yeah, once the power's in the board, if you short those together, it's essentially the same as pressing the power switch. Now we've got the bench power supply set to 5.5 volts, well, it's 5.4. That will do. So positive is this guy here. And negative. And we'll just double check the voltage here. So we should have 5.4-ish. There we go, 5.4, lovely stuff. We need to make the Lynx think it's switching on now. So we've got to short pins 7 and 13. Got a little bit of amp draw now, so it's switched on, that's good. So now we need to test the voltage between the positive and then one of our ground planes here. Now usually there's a shield over an Atari Lynx, but mine doesn't have that. So I think someone's been in here before. Between our battery terminal and our ground plane, we should have between 4.8 to 5 volts. Well, that's a little low actually. So if we switch it off again, and we'll just crank the voltage now up to 6 volts. Now obviously remember this runs on 9 volts normally, but we're just supplying under the voltage at the moment, because if you put in the full 9 volts and you've got a game cartridge installed and there is a problem with your power circuit, you could destroy your cartridge basically. So that's why we're just taking things slowly and gently. So let's put our voltage back on and then short our pins together. We've got an amp draw, so it's switched on. And let's measure our voltage now. So again, we should be looking at 4.8 to 5. Interesting. So it looks like we do have a bit of a problem with our power circuit because it shouldn't be whacking out that much voltage. Oh no! I was hoping it would be all right, but you know, I'd rather make sure it all worked than have things break further. So I guess we've got to look at our kit and try and work out what is going where. So we've got a diode to replace and R74, that's in this bag. We've got some more diodes to replace. And they're in this bag. Now I can see which ones those are, okay. And then we've got another diode to replace, and that's in this bag. We've got these transistors to replace. We've got the IC, I think, U6, yeah, that was the one we were just shorting to replace in this bag. And then finally, I think this is a MOSFET. Or a transistor or something like that. But yeah, this is Q12 and that's there. Well, I'll tell you what, let's start by replacing this guy at Q12. Nice. Let's put some fresh leaded solder on. Right, and let's fit our replacement. Nice. Right, so next thing to go is this guy here at U6. Not bad. Not bad. So this has a little dot in it which denotes pin 1. And pin 1 is up here in that top left corner. Nice. Yeah, pretty pleased with that. Okay, so now we've got to turn our attention to R74 and D13. So now we need to get rid of R74 and D13, but also the next step is to replace Q8 and Q7. So we might as well get them all off in one fell swoop. Wish me luck. Gonna put a little blob of fresh solder on these guys. Right, let's start by getting Q7 on. Right, and now Q8. Oh man, it blew away. Where did that go? Oh, just went there. Right, okay. Try this again. So that's a I think that's 360 ohm resistor. 361, I think that's 336 and 10, so 360, I think. It's on the wonk a bit, but you know, it's all right. So next to go in is this Zener diode. I think it's a Zener diode, and I think this is our negative side. So yeah, our diode has got to go on the board this way round. That was tricky, that guy, especially as it's circular, it rolls around. Just going to add a tiny bit more solder to the end of it. Right, so now we've got to turn our attention to this guy here. There isn't a modern equivalent of this with the 3 legs. So yeah, we need to use something a little bit different. But let's get it off first, and then we can worry about that. Now I'm just going to put a blob of solder here and a bit more fresh solder on this middle pad, because our replacement is going to go from here, this pad, to the middle pad. And we're sort of going to lie it diagonally in a certain way. So where we've got these little lines up here, I'm pretty certain that's the negative side. And so we have got to place it where we were just looking, roughly like that. Now, because this isn't really ideal for hot air, I'm going to do it with the soldering iron. That's a bit on the wonk, unfortunately. That's all right, I think. Then we just got to solder. It's not pretty, but I think that'll work. Don't think we're bridging. Cool. Right, so now we've got to concentrate on these diodes. So on the top ones, we've got our negative pins facing this cap, and then the bottom one, it's facing away. I think I'm going to do these with the soldering iron and a bit of Kapton tape on here. I just don't feel very confident with the hot air so close to the volume dial and that capacitor, to be fair. Got there in the end. And then finally this guy. Now it's super hard to see, but you can see some lines next to where it says, I think it says K. The lines denote the negative, so that tells us which way round these have got to go. That is the correct way. Right, so this one has to be the opposite way round. Wow, okay, that was all right. I found the little diode guys up here a little bit tricky because they just didn't feel quite long enough. Considering that was my first time using hot air to replace components, I'm actually pretty pleased with myself. So we've still got our pin bridged so we can do the sort of safe boot test, as it's called. Now, if you haven't liked this video so far, please do give it a like, because it has taken an extraordinarily long amount of time to do. And we still haven't done the screen kit yet. So yeah, has been quite the epic journey for me. And yeah, if you could hit that like and maybe drop me a comment to let me know what you think, that would be awesome. Right, so let's put the voltage at 5.5 volts. We're not drawing any current, so that's good because that means that it's off. So now we need to bridge our pins again. Yes, it's switched on, it's drawing ampage, that's good. So we should have between 4.8 volts and 5, measuring between the positive and the ground plane here. Okay, that's good. It's not under. And we'll just increase our voltage to 6 volts. So we've got to switch it on by shorting our pins. Nice. Got a current draw. Right, again, so we're looking for 5 volts. Nice. So we've got a nice steady voltage coming out. So now, in theory, it should be stable. So when the full 9 volts goes into it, it won't. Shall we put a game in? Let's put our blue lightning game in. Now we've got to hook up the speaker. Now this all looks a little bit janky, but we should be okay. So in theory now, I turn the voltage up and we give it the 9 volts. Now I know after all this time we're sort of going to be back to where we started with a game playing blind, but we've got a much more stable power circuit and all those lovely replaced capacitors. So this puts us in the perfect position to put our screen in. Now I'm saying all this, it might not work. Right, so in theory now, if we short our pins, we should eventually hear some sound. The speaker crackled. We're drawing ampage. I am over the flipping moon because I was really concerned because I should have maybe tested the voltages and everything before I started dicking about too much. And that burning smell, which was obviously that capacitor that we found, that was obviously pushing in too much voltage, and I was really worried that we'd fried our game cartridge. So now, knowing that we have a board that's playing blind, we're ready to install our mod kit. So to remove the screen, we need to remove 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and that should be the entire screen assembly. That is our old screen assembly. Just get the board out for now and see how that fits, because I think it uses these screw holes. Do you know what? I might not actually need to fit the HDMI connector, because this actually screws in the existing screw holes. I'm just doing 2 as an example. Yes, look. I think I'm not going to cut a hole for the HDMI port, but what I should really do is give the inside of the case a little bit of a clean up and blow out the cobwebs, literally. And yeah. But yeah, I think the screen sort of roughly goes like that. And then our ribbon cable for it comes through the hole and plugs into this connector down here. Oh, and if you're wondering what this guy floating around here is, that's the touch sensor, which will stick on the case somewhere so you can access the menu and change the controls. I think the only problem the Lynx has over the Game Gear is that spare parts aren't really a thing, and I haven't seen a replacement plastic screen for the Atari Lynx 2. I think I have for the 1, but not the 2, which is a bit frustrating. But anyway, let's get some of these sticky guys in position. So you can buy a McWill mod for this, and I think you can also get a RetroSix clean screen one, and both of those come with little jigs to hold the screen in place. I did look to see if there was like a 3D printed thing that I could print to do it for this screen, but there wasn't. I mean, Maybe if I have some trouble with the screen alignment, maybe I could look at printing something like that, but let's get it working first before we worry too much about 3D printing custom parts. Right, that looks roughly right. Now the problem is with these screens, which I think you've probably seen in the Game Boy Pocket video that I've done, or maybe you haven't yet, that's coming out soon. You only get one go at putting them in position. You only get one go at putting them in position because the adhesive actually sticks to the screen bit itself. So if you screw it up, you can't just yank the screen out. So yeah, this is not much fun, this bit. If you watch really carefully, when I move my head, you're about to see me make a silly mistake. Oh, fuck. I've left the ribbon cable up. Oh no! So once I've delicately peeled the screen off, thankfully I hadn't pressed too hard, I have to redo the sticky pads because they sort of got a bit destroyed when I was pulling it out and they probably lost a bit of their adhesion. So yeah, just basically got to redo what I did again. Better. Oh man. I guess now we should put this board in position. Right, we can take the gloves off now. The gloves have come off. Get the ribbon cable in. Nice. And then we can screw it in position. So if you're doing this, you know that you don't necessarily have to cut it out to put the HDMI connector in. It is an added bonus should you wish to. So there we go. That's our board installed. Still got to do the touch sensor, I'll do that in a mo. And our new screen. Right, let me try and do this touch sensor. Right, there's our touch sensor in position. Cool. So now we need a way of getting the signal of the video and also some of the inputs into our new video board. And we do so with this ribbon cable that is sort of straddling this side, which went to our old screen connector, and this side, which is our controls and buttons. It's a little bit fiddly. The little holes for the solder points don't quite align. So it means that sort of this bit's okay. And then these bottom pins are okay, but these pins up here, I can't quite reach. And I've tried like fiddling about and jiggling it and everything like that, and it just doesn't seem to want to play.
That's what she said. Don't you dare.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put some flux underneath it, so that will help the solder flow underneath. Hopefully it won't bridge. Make a bit of a sticky mess underneath.
That's what she said.
Oh, no, not that. Just come on, you guys, let's do it.
I did think about putting some fresh solder on the top here, but because the holes are so tight as it is...
That's what she said. No time, but she did. No time!
I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I've also got my soldering iron right down to 330, largely because you shouldn't really have it too high when you're soldering on the sort of flexi boards like these. I mean, it looks like it's making contact. Oh, I think it is, you know. I might be wrong, but that looks okay. Oh, look. It's not pretty, but it works. Hopefully. Is it a bit janky? Yes. Will it work? I don't know. Right, well, I'm just going to clean some of the excess flux off. It might just work. So I put some Captain tape on the ribbon connector just to kind of help hold it in place, give it a bit of mechanical protection. Now we've got these little connections on the ribbon cable. We've got BK, audio right, audio left, and ground. Now you don't have to connect the ground because there's already ground to the board, but the audio left and right, I think, are only required if you're using the HDMI output, which we're not. They actually go to 2 certain points on the board. I'll put up the pictures that are on the instructions as to where they go. Now the backlight, the BK, is for the contrast wheel, but the picture on the instructions, the contrast wheel actually has more pins than my 4 pins. I think that one has like 5 or 6 different pins. And thankfully, someone in the reviews of this kit actually said, if you've got the 4-pin contrast wheel, you need to connect your BK line to this one up here. So thank you, Mr. Commenter, because I was very confused. So yeah, the kit comes with these lengths of wire. Let's put a little blob of solder on BK. Let's get our supplied wire and put it on BK. That'll do. That'll do. Let's find our contrast wheel pin. Put the soldering iron back up to a bit more of a normal temperature. And then we'll get our other end of the wire. Now, I'm not overly bothered about like the brightness control. I assume this will work. I hope this will work. But there is a menu option to change the brightness, so I'm not going to stress too much. Okay, let's go back to the main camera and try and get this bad boy back together and working. Yeah, essentially, we've got to get this ribbon this way round into the connector. We've got to connect up the button connector, and we've got to connect up the speaker, and yeah, just try and get it all in the case. So let's do this connector first. Right, it might be a bit difficult to see this next part because it's a bit fiddly. Right, that sits nicely, but we've got to get this battery compartment thing in. Right, I tell you what, while I'm putting the screws for the back cover on, helps me put it around the right way, why don't you put in the comments whether you think this will work or not? Because I am not feeling entirely hopeful, if I'm honest with you. We've done a lot of work on this board and replaced all the capacitors, replaced the power circuit, and of course we started with something that played blind, so there could have been some kind of graphical fault and we wouldn't even know about it right until, well, switch on, I guess. So this is making me feel a bit anxious because I don't think I've spent this long on a fix ever before. Right, let's put the game in. And is it game on or game not on? Okay, let's do this. 3, 2, 1. Oh, live. Oh, for f***'s sake. Oh, what? Why is... Hang on. Oh my God, look at that. Now we can see what was going on while it was making sounds before. I remember reading about maybe a McWill or maybe the Ben Ven Screen Mod doing garbage when you turned it on. And it might have been something that was fixed in a later version. I've read so much about Atari Lynx screens over the last couple of days, I can't really remember. Yeah, aside from that garbled nonsense to start with, it's actually looking absolutely incredible. Got to see, I've got to learn how you get the menu up. Press the option 2 and AB buttons for 1 second to activate the menu. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay, so we use the option 2 button to cycle through things. Ah, nice, okay. Colour mode. Oh, okay, so it's got lots of random colours, yeah, that you'll probably never want to use. Pixel effect. Oh, is this scan lines? Yeah, it's different scan line setup. Okay. Panel ratio. Oh, okay. Yeah, you probably won't want to put it on 2. Horizontal position. Oh, so you can jiggle it about if need be. Oh, okay, yeah, it's moving on the horizontal. Touch, yeah, that's the touch sensor in the top. And factory reset. Okay, I don't want a factory reset. And then you just let it leave the menu. There we go. Touch sensor. I can't remember where I put the touch sensor now. Oh, look, there it is. So you can control the brightness with the touch sensor. Oh yeah, and look, the contrast wheel does work as well. Yes, it's got this weird garbled screen. Yeah, I'll have a little read up to see if there's a workaround. But it seems once the game boots, it's absolutely fine and looks amazing. Like I said at the start, I've never owned an Atari Lynx before. I used to be a massive fan of Atari games, especially all the arcade games, like Road Blasters and Paperboy. There's an Indiana Jones game as well. Peter Packrat, also Clax. Oh my God, that was a great Atari game. So yeah, I am really happy that I own one of these now. And I'm really happy that hopefully that should be set up for the future. I think I could possibly sell this for a profit on eBay, but I don't think I want to because this has actually probably been one of my favourite fixes of all time. Don't get me wrong, it's been an absolute slog and a struggle at times. Cannot tell you how happy I am that A, it's done, and B, that it works. But yeah, I'm over the moon. I'm going to go and have a sit down and have a very nice beer now, I think. And maybe have a few games on my Atari Lynx. I've got nothing else to say, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but for now, it's game over.